Hi guys, Dr. Yerby. In this video I'm going to show you how to download VMware and install VMware, then create a new virtual machine. So I have a link that I like to share to get to the VMware Academy. So it's just tinyurl.mscvm. So when you do that, that will take you to this page. If you are one of my students, or if your professor has sent me a listing with your email addresses, you'll have an account in here. If you've never used the website, you'll go through register, put in your username, which will be your .edu account, continue, and then it'll ask you to create a password. And you can start shopping, and then you'll see all of the different VMware software that you'll have access to at no charge. I always like to recommend people go with the latest version of VMware Workstation. So right now the latest version is VMware Workstation 14. So you just select the VMware, add it to your cart. I'll have to blank out my serial number there. Download it, and then I'll just install this just as I would any regular Windows install. Just run the executable. When yours first boots, it'll look similar to this. You probably will not have anything in your library over on the left pane. You'll start here at the home page. To create a brand new machine, you simply click Create New Machine, and it'll give you the option to do a typical or advanced. For this one I'll do custom, just so we can look at all the options that will be in here. So ask me which versions do I want this to be compatible with. If I'm going to work on the same VM on a machine that has Workstation 10, then maybe I need to do that, but for now we'll keep this. This is where you actually install the operating system. So we can create a brand new machine, but if we give it no operating system, then when we try to start it, there's not going to be anything there. So you can either get a disk, an install disk, and put it into your physical drive, and you would select this. Or a way to save disk and time is you can say, I want to use an ISO file. And so you select this option, browse, and we need to find where you have ISO files. So let me look on my computer real quick and see what I have. So I have several different ISO files. Let's see if I can find something. All right, so I'll do this one. Let's see. So I have an ISO file in a folder on my machine. All right, and so we'll see that, and you see this is a disk image file. So I'll select this. This is going to be a Windows Server file. Hit open, and then VMware is pretty good about detecting what kind of operating system it is. So it was able to detect that it's Windows Server 2012, and it's going to use easy install. So it knows all of the default settings to set up a Windows Server 2012. Still going to ask me product key. I can enter that later. I can say which version of Windows I want. So I'll do standard for this one. It asks me for the name that I'll use, and if I want to set a password. So I'm just going to leave the product key blank, leave my password blank for right now. And it says you didn't enter this. You can go ahead and install, but it won't be able to be activated. And I say that's okay. It gives it a name, tells me where I'm going to save. So I'll hit next. It'll ask you what kind of firmware you want. So BIOS is our old basic input output. UEFI. It gives us a little bit more of a newer interface where you can use your mouse and click and do the settings. So I'll go with this option. Either option should be fine. How many processors do you want? So you really want to see what's available on your machine. And if you over allocate resources, then what you're going to have issues with the machine not booting, because if I try to tell my VM that I'm going to give it 16 gigs of RAM, I'm going to be somewhat conservative here, and then it gives me a recommendation of only 2 gigs of RAM. So the less RAM you're able to allocate, the slower the machine's going to run while it's installing and while you're using it. The more you're able to allocate, the better it'll be able to run. But you have to keep in mind that it's going to be using the RAM from your host machine. So keep that balance. And if you set it too high, then you'll have issues with it not being able to boot at all because it won't have the RAM that it thinks is available. This is the networking options. We'll keep it at NAT for this demonstration. We'll leave this SCSI controller. We'll use SCSI disk. We'll create a brand new virtual disk. If we already had something, we could a previously existing machine, we could use one of these options. This is the size that we will allow it to grow to. This gives us an option to store it as a single file or multiple files. Splitting it makes it easier to move it to another computer, but may reduce performance with very large disk. And then this allocate disk space now. If I check this box, it's going to take up 60 gigs of hard drive space on my hard drive. If I don't check this box, it's probably going to take up about 5 gigs once I get everything up and running. And then as I use the VM and it needs to expand, it'll be allowed to expand up to 60 gigs. So I really very rarely will check this box. All right, and this will be the name of my disk file. It's my VMDK file. If I ever want to move this, and if I want to go through and look at some of the other hardware in here, if I wanted to change anything on my my network card, my sound card, if I wanted to add some other things, if I needed to add some serial port, or if I wanted to add some sort of a fingerprint encryption or something, I could do it there. But for this, those are my needs. Hit finish. It's going to add it to my library. It's going to go ahead and try to power on. This first time it powers on, what it's doing is hopefully it's going to boot to that ISO image, and it's going to see that there's a Windows Server disk. It looks good. It's going to see that there's a Windows Server disk virtually in the CD drive, and so now it's going to go through the process of installing Windows Server 2012. And since it's doing the easy mode, it should go ahead and automatically select the standard version with the graphical user or desktop experience, I think is what they call it now. So that's it. After the setup runs through, you'll be able to log in and you'll have a functioning virtual machine of whatever operating system you chose. Thanks.